Welcome to Share a Pint, where we tap into the craft beer scene. I'm Jerry Hulla, your host. Today we're talking with Tom Barse and Sarah Healey from Milkhouse Brewery. Thank you both for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
I'd be cheating our listeners out of a good story if I didn't mention the first time we were going to shoot, we had to reschedule based to a sheep emergency. So, Tom, just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we had an emergency with my old girl that I had to take care of, and it had to be done right then. I had to move her from one part of the farm to the other, and anyway, she's fine. So.
Good. Well, if the story ends well, that everything's okay. Yeah. But like I said, I felt like, it's not a text you get every day when you're headed to the brewery. Hey, we got a sheep emergency. We're going to have to reschedule. And I was like, what? That's got to be a story for later. What other types of challenges are presented by being a farm brewery versus just a traditional brewery?
The big challenge, of course, is that the brewery itself is just one other aspect of the farm. Mm-hmm. And the public perception is that we're just a brewery and not also a farm. Mm-hmm. So we do other things besides make beer and sell beer. We raise a rare breed of sheep, Leicester Longwool sheep, and we market the meat and the wool and the hides and the fleeces, and we also make a lot of hay on the farm here that we sell, high horse quality hay. We grow our own hops. At another location we grow barley and wheat. And so the public perception is that we're not really a farm, we're just a brewery, and which is fine, but so the challenge is trying to educate the public. They come up here from Bethesda or Baltimore or whatever, and they come up here to this beautiful farm, and sometimes their children we're making hay out on the hayfield right next to the brewery here, and the kids are out there running through the windrows and throwing them up in the air, and so they kind of sometimes don't get it because they're not used to coming out into the country and visiting farms. But it's good. So the challenge is good because it helps us educate the public about more than just beer. It's also about agriculture. So it's kind of like the basis for agritourism.
Probably a little more family-friendly than most places. A lot of breweries will say they're family-friendly, but if you're on a farm and there's lots of neat things to do and animals to interact with, I'm sure the kids are enjoying that a lot more.
Well, and the other challenge, too, is that there are very busy times of the agricultural calendar.
Yeah.
And they coincide with very busy times on the brewery calendar.
Exactly. So, and fortunately, we have great staff at the brewery. But, like during hop harvest or, in haymaking season, we're making hay, or lambing season when we're having baby lambs. And, there are times when I'm not available to the brewery. And so we depend on having really good staff, Sarah Healey, to really run the brewery. And Harry, our brewer, does an excellent job. And I can disappear for a few days doing other stuff on the farm, and we're just perfectly fine. In fact, a lot of times they just kick me out of here. Say, you're in our way, get out. Go work down on the farm.
Well, how's the transition been for you then, Sarah? Obviously, you said that's a big part of bringing you in here and helping him out with this piece of it.
Yeah.
But being a Texas girl and coming out here to farm country.
That's right. So when I first started with the brewery, I was just here part-time doing sales. And our former GM, Abby Casarella, who now works with us, she's with Grow and Fortify, so she works directly with the Brewers Association, the winemakers, the distillers. After she left, I kind of came into her position, and we didn't backfill mine for sales. And it's kind of been a dream of my husband's and mine to live more sustainably and be more connected with the land. And so it was like a really cool opportunity for us to come in and learn more. And my husband has been a big farm hand when he's around, helping with lambing and operating equipment, which is really nice because it gives me the opportunity to really focus on the business and the brewery and making sure that things go smoothly. Because it's very busy, and we have to kind of plan brewery events around, farm events. We have crab feasts here in the summer, and, of course they're here in this beautiful patio and the pavilion, but we make hay in all of this field around us. So it's like coordinating, okay, well, when do we think we're going to be making it, trying to predict the weather. When do we think we're going to be making hay versus when do we schedule these? And we're going to have all these people here. So it is a bit of a juggling act, but like Tom said, I think it definitely helps us be able to educate people that beer is an agricultural product.
Mm-hmm.
Beer is of the earth. These ingredients come from the ground. And I think it's a really special experience for people to see farming happening in real time.
Yeah.
While they're here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like these people come up from, you know, like Tom said, from DC or, you know, Virginia or wherever, and they maybe have never done this before. So I think it's a really cool experience for them to get to enjoy beer where it comes from.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's where it comes from, is right here on the farm. So we do buy other hops and grain from other farmers in Maryland, which is why our beer most of it is 90 to 100% Maryland grown.
Oh, great.
So we're pretty proud of that.
It's a unique quality, for sure. You were the first Class B Maryland Farm Brewery, so there are going to be some ways that you set the trend and help some other people along the way. We recently were talking with Corey over at Manor Hill, and they mentioned being able to reach out and talk with you a little bit when they went through their process, since they were the first one in Howard County. But you were the first in Maryland. So what types of obstacles and things did you have to overcome?
Well, the first obstacle we had to overcome was that you weren't allowed to brew beer on your farm and sell it anywhere in the state.
First problem.
We went to, and initially back in 2011, maybe, we went to the county and to the planning commission and told them this is what we'd like to do. They said, you can't do that. And I asked them why, and they said, well, because it's beer. And I said, well, the wineries, they grow grapes and make wine and sell it at the farm.
Yeah.
We grow hops, and we've been selling hops, and we'd like to make beer with it. So Calvert County had passed an ordinance as part of their zoning ordinance to allow farm breweries, wineries, and distilleries after the tobacco lawsuits, and the tobacco farmers weren't growing tobacco anymore, and so they created this opportunity for Maryland, Calvert County farmers to try something else. And I found that statute, and I showed it to Frederick County, and was working with Greg Clayball, who was a farmer here in Frederick County as well, and we got the county to change the ordinance, but it didn't kind of really help very much, because it just didn't help with sales on the farm.
Okay.
It made it difficult. So we went to our local delegate, Kelly Schultz, who is now our Secretary of Commerce for the state of Maryland. She was our local delegate, and I approached her and said, with a few other people, and said, we'd like to be able to do this, and the county ordinance really doesn't help us very much. And she got behind it, so we ended up writing the law.
Okay.
So the state law, which created a Class 8 manufacturing license, and you have to grow some of your ingredients for your beer on the farm. And anyway, so that was signed into law in 2012 by Governor O'Malley.
Okay.
And we opened, we sold our first beer in May of 2013. So we were up and running, and the tasting room actually opened June of 2013.
Okay.
So the big obstacle at first was making it legal. But the other obstacles, of course, is that it's an agricultural product, and our commitment was to make beer with the Maryland agricultural product that we grow on the farm, or grown on other farms in Maryland. So we were already growing the hops. We used to sell them to Heavy Seas and Flying Dog and some of the other brew pubs, Prestry Ale House in Baltimore, and we don't sell them anymore because we use them in our own beer. But it also got other farmers to grow hops. So now there are several, probably a half a dozen serious commercial hop growers in Maryland, which is great because they grow different varieties than I do. And so I can access varieties that we like but don't grow by buying hops from other Maryland farmers. So,
Yeah. Well, which ones do you grow? I mean,
so we grow, right now we're growing Cascade, Chinook, and Southern Cross, which is a New Zealand variety.
Oh, okay.
That Brian Butler, who was the University of Maryland Extension agent in charge of the experimental hop program at the experimental farm in Keysville in Washington County. So he was growing those, and we got some from him, and
We
all
love
fell in love
them.
with them. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm planting some of these.
Nice.
So we have the three varieties, and we're thinking about expanding with another variety or two. We like Brewer's Gold.
Okay.
And in fact, we just made the latest version of our Green Farmer Pale Ale. It's all Brewer's Gold, and it's delicious.
That's awesome.
We really like it. So it does really well in Maryland. And anyway, so That's what we grow here. But other farmers have Nugget, and they also have Southern Cross and
Zeus.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know when we talked to Corey recently at Manor Hill, and they do the Cascade and the Chinook like you do, but they do the Nugget and they do the Centennial.
Right.
Oh yeah, Centennial.
And so yeah, it's nice to hear different hops that people are go, hey, let's go throw this in our beer, or hey, down the street we can go pick this up from such and such. And
well, we also found another hop growing here in Frederick County that was planted, we understand, back in the 1820s on a farm up near Utica. A fellow that I know told me about it. And we went and got cuttings and dug some rhizomes, and we planted it in a couple of different hop yards in Carroll County and Frederick County. And we have fallen in love with this hop variety. It's a little bit difficult to grow. It's immune to all the diseases Maryland can throw at it, but it's difficult to harvest on our machines because it has really long sidearms, and it ripens very late.
Like really late.
Like 6 weeks after we're done with everything else.
oh wow,
So
got to remember it's out there.
we're
but we
working on
love
this.
it.
So we're working with that hop, see where we can go, and we gave some actually to Brian Butler at the experimental farm in Keedysville. So we're going to continue exploring with that and experimenting with that hop over the next couple of years to see whether or not we can make it commercially viable. So we're working with that.
I think that's another challenge is our, over time as more ingredients become available locally, our commitment to local ag and to supporting other small farms, we don't use any of the proprietary sexy hop varieties that you get on the West Coast. So it's so important to us that people like Brian Butler continue their education to find out what are other varieties that grow here, because we only use things that we grow here, so in this time of huge interest in the West Coast, all of these crazy hop varieties, that doesn't work for us because that's not what we do, because we can't grow them here.
Can't grow citrus, Simcoe, Mosaic, Amarillo.
A lot.
Because they're proprietary.
Oh, okay.
And you have to get a contract with the person who owns the hop. They're not going to give me one because I'm not growing 600 acres.
Okay.
Right.
So
it's more that and not as much about the climate that wouldn't allow you to grow.
no, it has nothing to do with
Oh, it's all
Okay.
licensing.
It's all about licensing. And
Okay.
quite frankly, everybody who's listening to this knows Tom doesn't like those hops anyway.
I would be interested to know what they would taste like here, though. They could be totally different.
Yeah, because a Cascade grown in Maryland is different than a Cascade grown in Oregon
I mean, they're just like grapes.
or New York. The terroir does play a significant role in there. I mean, they have a base kind of flavor and aroma, but you get interesting kind of side notes when you grow in different areas. So like a Cascade from New York is slightly different than a Cascade from Maryland, but they're both way different than a Cascade grown in Oregon.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. We like that.
Well, tell me a little bit about the Still Point Reserve series that you started back in 2015.
Oh, that's evolved majorly over time.
So I'm old-fashioned, and we make old-fashioned, or as Sarah puts it, traditional styles of beer here. And one of the things I always wanted to try to do was to come up with kind of a Maryland version of what they do in Wallonia, in Belgium, sort of like lambic style, but not really lambic, because Maryland, it's different. So a few years ago, like 3.5 years ago, we went around the farm and took scrapings from tree bark, from north, south, east, and west, from an oak tree, a cherry tree, and an elm tree, collected the yeast, built it up. It took about 6 months to build up a pitchable batch. And then we brewed experimental beers with different worts with these yeasts. Some of them were really horrible.
Terrible.
Some of them were really good. So there's like 3 or 4 that we're working with right now that are really awesome. And we ferment the beer in barrels, old wine barrels that we got from Old Westminster Winery in Carroll County. And some of them are a couple of years old and they're almost ready.
Nice.
So we probably won't make any money on these beers because they're so labor intensive, but the beer is really good. So in the meantime, we decided to make kind of distinctive beers, and we called it our reserve beers. And we did different varieties of, we added fruit that we got locally. So we buy fruit from local orchards, Augers up in Carroll County,
Catoctin Mountain.
orchard in Frederick County. And so we ferment those fruits and basically make wine with them. And then we blend that with either fresh wort or freshly brewed beer, different varieties. And then we blend them together, let them re-ferment in barrels. And then we try blending them with the wild yeast.
Okay.
And we've come up with these really pretty unique beers, of which we don't have a lot. And when they go on, they sell out in zero time. So we have a bunch actually getting ready to start marketing, and we may start bottling those as well. So we'll be back to bottling the Reserve series. But it takes time for these beers. It just takes time. And we're pretty happy with the way it's going. I wish it would be quicker, but there's a few right now that, in fact, Harry's in there blending two.
Two barrels right now. Yeah.
That we're going to have on in a week or so, maybe two. And we call it Beach House, although it's wintertime. I think maybe we should call it Ski Lodge.
Just our flagship farmhouse, aged in red wine barrels. And it gives it, so the first round of these gave it a nice like toasted coconut and vanilla kind of, and it was just perfect in the summertime. It's like beach house instead of farmhouse.
But those are nice and warm in the cooler temperatures as well.
Well, and the Reserve series, I think, like evolved over time because, like I said, with our growing access to local ingredients, at the time of the Reserve series, it was like we couldn't get a ton of stuff other than hops, but like we could get fruit. So we featured tons of local fruit in this series. But now that we've been able to convert so many of our recipes to local ingredients, kind of moving towards the Barrel Reserve series with the wild yeast and that kind of stuff. It's like those used to be reserved because we couldn't get these things, and now that we can, it's just an evolution of what's available. It's pretty cool.
It's getting more exciting and
much more exciting,
more rarefied.
Definitely.
Well, that segues nicely into talking a little bit about the wild yeast barrel fermentation program that I read that you guys have kind of recently started, and Sarah and I were talking about that a little bit during the setup. So tell me kind of where you guys are with that and what you hope to do with that.
So we have, like I said, we have 3 or 4 yeasts that we're working with, and and it's funny, we call them barrel numbers. So we have barrel number 6, barrel number 9.
Well, a native barrel. So anything that has a native yeast.
Yeah, so we call them the native barrel. We've sold barrel number 6 and barrel number 9, these native yeasts, and they sold very well on draft only. And so now we have more barrel number 6 and more barrel number
We've refilled
8.
these barrels. So the barrels are inoculated with this culture. And so we want to kind of see how it evolves over time because they mutate.
And so we've also added local fruit into some of these, and some we haven't. And so we just tasted some of them yesterday, and they're really coming along nicely. So we'll see. It's the great experiment. This is how Harry has his fun. Our brewer Harry. And we all have fun. He'll go and take samples, and we set up 6 or 8 samples on the bar in that glass right there, and taste them all. And
we pull fruit and add fruit, blends. I mean, that's the scientific way that we blend on the bar. But we purchased a cool ship earlier this year. So next week we're getting ready to do our first true full batch cool ship, so we're really excited. Turbid mash, similar to what we did with our original barrel fills, but we're actually going to cool ship it overnight next week. Fingers crossed the weather is good.
Yeah.
So we're very excited to see what we get. We actually have another one of the yeast cultures we're working with. We call it Rock Ship. And it was a little pan of wort that we put out up on our rock, up on the hill, where everybody watches the sunset. And it really came out nicely. So we're excited to see where that goes. Cool ship number 1.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So we're pretty excited about it.
So in a year and a half, you can come back and try it.
That's good. Everything improves with age. You got to be patient.
That's right.
Great. Where can people find you guys online with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram?
So Facebook, we're Milkhouse Brewery. Instagram, we're Milkhouse Brewery. Untapped, we're Milkhouse Brewery. And Twitter, we are Milkhouse Brew. And our hashtag is drink beer grown here.
Great. Well, we'll also have that available in our show notes, and we'll put it up on our website at shareapintpodcast.com.
Awesome.
Well, we've learned a little bit about the brewery. Let's get to know both of you better. We talked a little bit earlier, Sarah, that you're from Texas, from Austin area, which is a very established beer scene. What types of experiences there have helped you come in here, and what have you been able to bring from there?
So actually, when I moved here, I was just starting to get into craft beer, which is really funny because I, at the time, didn't even realize what a mecca of beer I was living in. But I was 23 when I left. So I think I came from retail. So I came from a very seriously customer service based, and I think that has helped me shape being able to sell beer, because it's important to share the story. And it's important to get, like, I specifically worked with women in retail. So creating these comfortable, intimate experiences to be able to then market to people has always been really important to me. And I've always wanted to love and have a passion for the product that I sell. Like, I can't just sell anything. You know what I mean? I have to really be behind it. And I thought, you know, after years and years and years in retail and so many holidays and so many, it's just miserable. I was like, I want to have a desk job. So I did that. And then I really got into craft beer here, because like, we moved here and it was like, you know, the Frederick beer scene was just really starting to boom and like grow. You know, 7 years ago, it was like right before Milkhouse opened. And I was like, I just want to try everything. And, you know, so it was a lot of beer drinking got me to where I am today. And, there's a local store where I started working, and Ben Gulicki is the owner of Mount Airy Liquors, and he's really passionate about educating all of his staff about all the products. So he doesn't just taste in the back by himself. Like, he wants all of the employees to taste and learn. And so I got to talk to so many brewers and winemakers from all over the world and distillers, and you know, just my passion for wanting to learn more about this just continued to grow. And when this opportunity presented itself, it was just really cool, because I was like, I didn't know that I wanted my whole life to be about beer. But yet here we are.
I didn't know that Sarah and Stu were customers of ours before I hired her, you know.
That's what I was going to ask, is how you two got connected. I kind of see where the path is going, but there had to be a connecting point where the two.
Well, and it's so funny, because in my interview, and I like knew Tom. Everybody knows Tom. You know, you come here and he's like, I'm Tom, it's my place. You know, everybody knows Tom. And we sat right here in my interview, and he was like, what's your favorite beer? Like, sell it to me. And I happened to pick Goldie's, which I didn't know was Tom's favorite beer. Wow. So I think that's when he decided.
You did your research.
I really didn't. I didn't know. But yeah.
That was my favorite. That settled that deal.
That's
We
great.
had to have a girl who liked Goldies.
Only the best.
That's great.
We're glad to have her.
Yeah, well, we had talked earlier, and you said that Sarah was a big part of your story. So, you know, she's kind of talked about how she got here. What were maybe a couple of things that you saw within the, you know, the first couple of months or so when she was here that you're like, wow, I'm really glad that I picked her.
Well, she has great ideas, first of all, and she puts up with me, which is huge. And she just has good vision for, you know, not next week or next month, but she has good vision for that. But she also has good vision for what are we doing in 3 years? What are we doing in 5 years? You know, what do we need to do now to make next year better, or the year after better? And she was selling beer for us. I mean, she was selling our beer wholesale, running around to retailers all over the state. And so it wasn't really her bailiwick, so to speak, but she had an interest, and she showed that interest to us. And when Abby decided to go to Grow and Fortify, I asked her if she'd be willing to take over Abby's role. And actually, she is doing more than Abby did. Because she's not only manager of the brewery, but she's also helping a lot with the farm as well. So she has continued with that vision, and she continues to put up with me, which is still a miracle.
It's a full-time job.
What would have been maybe one or two of the biggest challenges for you as you made that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it's learning every day. I mean, it's a lot. It's learning to balance priorities between the farm and the brewery, which is not something that I had experience with in the previous side of the beer industry. And I think that's given me a unique perspective of like what matters and doesn't matter customer facing, because the issues that we have, you know, for example, the sheep issue, like things like that happen all the time. You as the customer, like that doesn't matter to you. Like, am I getting my beer or am I not getting my beer? Right. You know what I mean? Right. So it's being able to manage that, continually learning. And I mean, our industry has evolved so much, even in the 3.5 years that I've been here, you know, and trying to, how do we stay true to our values and our commitment to local and educating customers about ag, but also keep up with what's happening and make ourselves relevant in a time of constant change in the industry. So it's definitely been challenging, but I mean, we have a wonderful staff. I mean, our tap tenders have all been here at least as long as I've been, if not longer, which is very unique in our industry to have zero turnover in staff. I mean, they're wonderful. They educate our customers. They build relationships. I mean, you've been here when we've been open. You know, we know so many of our customers by name, and really they're the backbone of us being able to be successful in this business. Because you have a lot of choices on where you could spend your money and what brewery you want to go to. Over 100 choices. So it's been really cool to have a team that makes people continue to choose us.
And the other thing that Sarah had to learn too, moving from being in charge of our wholesale program to taking over the management, is that she has to coordinate with the brewing staff. Because what she does and what her vision is drives the brewing schedule, the brewing styles, and so she and Harry work together very intimately about, okay, here's what we want to see, what do we got to do to get there, what ingredients do we need to find, and that, you know, that's a 6 month out, you know, or more proposition,
Right.
and so, you know, like we harvest fruit when it's ripe, and then but we'll use it, so we release a beer when the fruit, that particular fruit, whether it's berries or cherries or plums or apricots or peaches, we release those beers when those fruit are available in the store.
Oh, okay.
So we buy a year ahead of time.
So
Wow.
we then, so that's why we process the fruit the way we do, is we ferment it and we let it, some of the fruit's a year old in wine barrels. It's wine.
Yeah.
And then, so that was the big learning curve that Sarah had to figure out. Are those guys going to listen to me?
The first year that I took over managing, we were able to get several hundred pounds of local peaches for like a great deal. And we were really excited about them. We're like, yes, we're going to do this peach farmhouse. It's going to be awesome. But when you're a farm and you work with farmers and you buy things in farm seasons are not beer seasons, just like real seasons are not fashion seasons, right? So that's why people drink pumpkin beer in July, not seasonal.
I got a few stories about that, but we'll do that. I'm not a big fan of how early you have to drink pumpkin beer, so
exactly.
I'm with you on that.
Buy it and put it in your basement until you really want it,
Exactly.
or else you'll miss it.
Yeah.
But, you know, so we put out this peach farmhouse after peaches were done. And I'm like, why is this not selling? This beer is fabulous. And that's when I was like, you guys, so this is a 2-year out plan. So next year, we're going to buy all this fruit when it's in season. We're going to process it in-house. I mean, we hand pit, press, blend everything in-house. There are no purees. There's no nothing. We go pick it up in crates.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work, too.
It makes a hell of a mess.
It does make a hell of a mess. But, you know, so that was last year. We bought all this fruit, and then this year we were able to actually release it. So basically, as we're blending this fruit, we're trying to refill these fermenters with fresh fruit. So...
And that one's good. That was the one that I had at the Baltimore Craft Beer Festival from you guys, was the peach. So,
the peach field
and I'm
hand.
always a little leery about, you know, it being too sweet, because I don't normally eat peaches, and so.
Right.
But no, that was really good. So
Thank
it turned
you.
out.
Because you can get fruit beer that tastes like a fruit smoothie, and we don't do that. So you can taste the essence of the fruit. You might get a touch of sweetness, usually not.
A lot more acidity than sweetness.
But you definitely know, oh, this is definitely peach, or this is definitely plum, or black raspberry, or whatever.
Like the plum is very nice in this one that I'm having right here.
Thanks.
Yeah. And it's, again, seems like it would be a fruit that might be a little hard to really get it to stand out and get noticed in the beer. But yeah, this is.
There's
this is
400 pounds of plums in.
10 barrels.
Oh, not even 10.
Yeah.
I think like 4. So there's like 5 pounds of fruit per gallon of beer. I mean, that was a cool one.
That's great. Well, tell me how you guys have been able to stay committed during the tough times. And obviously, there's a lot more going on here than just a brewery, like you said. So when things have gotten tough in one way, shape, or form of the farm, particularly to Maryland-grown ingredients in your beer, I mean, that says a lot.
Last year was a huge challenge for all types of agriculture. We got 6 feet.
That's a lot of rain.
A lot of farmers' crops failed. They couldn't harvest. Their combines got stuck in the mud. So grain became, because we used Maryland grain in our beer, and it was difficult to get grain that was high quality, didn't have vomitoxin, which is caused by a mold, We were able to get it, but it was like by the skin of our teeth to continue to brew what we did. And hop harvest was way down. The wineries lost 50% of their crop or more.
It was devastating.
It was a devastating year. This year was much better. That was probably our biggest challenge, was where we're going to get the local products we need. And the fruit growers suffered. It was just rough. But we were fortunate because we know these growers, and so they knew we were going to buy their ingredients. So they hung on to what they had, and we were very lucky to be able to get and continue our program of local. That was probably our biggest challenge to date, was last year in terms of ingredients.
Well, and the business continued to grow as we continue to educate people about our product. And, we took a long, hard look when we were able to get enough local grain to use it in every batch of beer. We took a hard look at our recipes and the quality of our beer and, what we were producing, and we pulled out of most of the wholesale market, and we spent a lot of time reformulating recipes to get them to the standard that we want to produce. Like, it's cool, like Tom says this all the time, like, it's really cool that we use local ingredients, but the fact that we can make a really, really good product with it is what makes it cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's what makes it great. So that was a challenge for us, is reformulating. And then it was like, we were finally in this groove and we're really happy with these recipes. And then all of a sudden Mother Nature had other plans for us. But I think, as Tom says, he's old fashioned. I think because all of us here, we love the styles of beer that we make. We love traditional beers. We're committed to that. I think it makes it easier for us that, like, it was a non-negotiable, like, we were going to find a way to make that work because this is our business. This is what we do. This is what we've committed to people. And I think the fact that Tom has stood his ground on his old-fashioned beer for so long, we just had to make it work.
Traditional has become our niche. So you won't find a New England hazy IPA here. You won't find a milkshake style IPA. No donuts in our beer. Not that I have a problem with that. People like those things. I just don't like them, and I don't really want to make beer that I don't really like. So, and it works for us. So we have customers.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Right.
That's what we do, and people like that, and they come here because they like our traditional styles of beer. So.
That's something to be said about carving out a niche, particularly in the craft beer industry when there's so many choices. And like you said, if the hot thing is this particular style, and
Totally.
or people think it's the hot thing. The IPA has been around for quite some time, but the Brut IPA was going to be the next hot thing after New England and the milkshake, and that lasted about a minute. And
We actually did one Brut IPA.
We did a Brut IPA.
And it was all local.
It was all local.
Minus the amylase.
And we kind of did it to show that you could make a sexy beer with local ingredients, and it actually was really good.
It was good. It was just like a big green farmer.
So we
make really dry beer anyway, so it was like, yeah.
I'm president of the Northeast Hop Alliance, and so we work with a lot of New York hop growers, and we use this Brut IPA to show the growers that they need to be able to sell brewers that you can make a sexy beer with our hops, And that was kind of the basis for that beer. It's like, okay, here's the newest thing. Let's go ahead and make it using all local ingredients, no citrus, Simcoe, all hops that you can grow as a hop grower. And it was awesome. It was a great beer. It was fruity and it was really nice beer.
It was.
Because of the hops that we can grow. So, and it'll be something else in a few years.
Sure.
I don't know.
Or 6 months or 3 weeks.
But we can't grow them. The growers in New York can't grow them. The growers in Virginia can't grow them, or Pennsylvania. So they need to figure out how to market those hops to local brewers. And there's a lot of local brewers who love that fact. That, I know they're Cascade, but they don't taste like those Cascades I normally buy.
Yes.
They're really awesome.
Right.
So, anyway.
Well, tell us again where we can find you guys online.
Oh yeah, Facebook, Milkhouse Brewery, Instagram, Milkhouse Brewery, Untapped, Milkhouse Brewery, and Milkhouse Brew on Twitter.
That's good. Well, again, we'll put that on our website and in our show notes.
Great.
Tom, Sarah, I want to thank you both for sharing a pint with me.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
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 Share a Pint is released bi-weekly on Friday mornings and can be found at shareapintpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at share_pint. Show notes for this episode are available at shareapintpodcast.com. Music for the show, Groundwork, provided by Kevin MacLeod, and can be found online at incompetech.com. Share a Pint is made possible by help from the Community Media Center of Carroll County. Associated with the craft beer industry and have an interesting story you'd like to share on a future episode? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at shareapintpodcast.com or email us at jerry@shareapintpodcast.com. Until the next time we share a pint, I'm Jerry Hollow. Prost.